Today, we're talking about the unspoken struggle that some parents may have in trying to reconcile two possible opposing ideas between a parent and a friend. Being a parent, a guide, a mentor, but also trying to be a friend, someone that your child enjoys being around and hanging out with. And we live in a society that tries to pull us away from the responsibility towards being buddies with our kids. And how do we reconcile that? How do we balance that out? How can we discern how to actually continue being parents to live this responsibility, but at the same time, not losing touch of really being the best friend for your son and daughter? The other day, I was talking to some parents, and one of the dads got all flustered because we're talking about how to parent and how to raise boys. And he goes, "Father, I am so tired of parents that I know who are afraid to be parents. I have parent friends who are afraid to be responsible, and all they want to have is fun with their boy, and they forget I need to be the dad. I need to tell my kid what is right. I need to tell them who God is. I need to tell them how to love, how to be virtuous. I need to be that role because if dad, you or mom, you don't do that for your kid, no one else will, and the world will pull them away and teach them other things that years will come by and you realize, yikes, I missed out on this opportunity." Let us not be afraid to be parents. Let us not be afraid to be the leaders of the home. I have three questions that I want all of us to ask ourselves today. Three questions you can ask yourself, and three questions you can even ask your spouse or talk about and pray about. The first one is, do I know that to be a mom or a dad implies love? It sounds so basic. It sounds so basic. But sometimes we are bogged down by so many different realities in life that we forget my primary goal, my primary responsibility is to help my kids grow and grow in love, to teach them how to love, to teach them what love is, to love them. What's the greatest commandment? Love God above all things and your neighbor as yourself. And your neighbor, as a mom and dad, is not the guy next door only, but your first neighbor is your child. Do I understand very clearly that my role as mom and dad is to love and teach my kids how to love? And loving means to will the good of the other. I see the need of the one in front of me and I cater to that. I try to satisfy that. I try to love them in the way that God wants to love them. And sometimes love hurts. Sometimes love means I need to be real with my son. I need to be real with my daughter. I have to call them out. I have to guide them. I have to sit them down and explain why things are the way they are, or explain why I got mad at them. Right? That's love. Love is not taking them out on dinner dates only. Right? Love is hard sometimes. Love implies responsibility. So ask yourselves, do I really have that in my head and in my heart, that role, that mission of loving and teaching my kids how to love? With that said, if you say yes, or finally I understand, or okay, I get it, the second follow up question to that is, do I realize that being a parent is actually the best way for me to love my kid? To live out my mission and my vocation as mother or father is the best way I can love my son or daughter. To be a friend happens or will happen or could happen. But if I neglect the primary way of loving them as mom or dad, something's missing. Something is missing. Jesus in the gospel over and over again talks to us about the Father's love. He says the Father is love. Interestingly enough, Jesus brings friendship at the end of the gospel. He's teaching these disciples what love is by loving them and giving and forgiving and miracles and mercy and all these things, the good shepherd. And at the end of his life, he says, I call you friends. Obviously, friendship is not a secondary, detached value. But sometimes we forget there's a responsibility. Jesus is shepherd and friend. He guides, he loves, and enjoys our company. Parents, you are shepherds. Parents, you guide. That's how you love. That's how you love. If you ask me, Father, if you ask, how can I love? Be the best mom or dad you can be. Live your responsibility and guide your kids to what true love is and love for God and love for neighbor. Guide them to heaven. To be a parent, 100% is to love 100%. But the third question is, did you know, it's more of a funny question, but did you know that it's not either or? It's not, oh, I'm a parent, therefore I cannot be a friend. It's both and. Those two things come and go, and sometimes you need to be more of a friend, and sometimes you need to be more of a parent. You have to be both, and in varying degrees depending on the circumstances. But don't forget, you cannot neglect your primary role as mom or dad. Friendship will come because we're all called to be friends of everybody. We're not called to be mom or dad for everybody. Your son or your daughter, your children, their relationship with you is that they are your children. And that means you are their mother and father. Friendship will come. That's natural. And it's both together. And if you can live your love as mom or dad and not be afraid to be parents, and then bring in the friendship aspect, you've got it made. The crosses can come, the sufferings can come, the struggles and all the doubts and fears may come as your kid grows up. But at the same time, you have that strength and you have the courage and you have the faith knowing, even if your kid rebels and says, Mom, I'm tired, or they go through this dark phase in their life where they don't want to talk to you, you know in your conscience, I loved them as a parent. I love them. I lived my mission as mom and dad. And God will bless you for that. And so let's continue this journey of building holy families and share this and live this and try it this next week to make that happen. Ask yourself, how many parent moments have I had or can have this week? How many times do I run from that responsibility? And could I go back to that? Could I try to make that happen? There are times when you have to take a step back and you have to wait. There are times where you have to apply that and live that. That all comes with prayer and that all comes with reflection. So, it's not a cut and dry thing. It's not black or white. It's a journey. It's a process. So let us continue this journey. Let us continue this process in trying to build holy families, learning how to ride the waters of life. But remember, love first, just like the Good Shepherd, just like Jesus. And then everything else will fall into place.